Today, I've got 5 tips to instantly sound more like a native speaker. And the good news is you don't need to spend hours learning them and practicing them. These are small changes that will immediately make a difference. Sometimes I find there is a gap between the way that native English speakers use English and the way that English learners speak. Even when they have a high level, sounds like they learnt English rather than grew up with it. But today we're going to bridge that gap. So here are 5 things that you can learn fast, and these tips are for all levels of English. Even if your English is not fantastic, follow these steps and you're going to sound more confident and more fluent and more like a native speaker today. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Let Them Talk. So we've got 5 tips for you today to instantly sound like a native speaker, plus a bonus tip too, so stay tuned for that. So the first tip is use may and might for probability. In English we've got these beautiful modal verbs to talk about probability, but I find most students hardly use them. Even with really advanced students, I hear, for example, maybe I go to Greece this year. Is that right? Maybe I go to Greece? No, it isn't. Or it is possible I will be late. When a native speaker would say, I may go to Greece this year, or I might be late. Don't complicate your life. Just use may and might before a verb to talk about probability. If I hear somebody say, maybe I go, maybe I do, I know I'm not speaking to a native speaker. And is there a difference between may and might? Well, a very small difference. May has a slightly higher level of probability. So 70%, I may go to Greece, 70% yes. I might go to Greece, 50% yes. I don't have the statistics, but may is a slightly higher level of probability. But don't worry too much about that. Just try and use may and might for probability. Tip number 2, use have got for possession. In English, the most common way of talking about possession in the present is have got or haven't got in the negative. So for example, I've got a pen, but I haven't got any money. This is especially true in questions. Have you got a pen? That's what most native English speakers will say. Do you have a pen? Yes, it's correct. Sounds a bit formal. It's correct. But I hear some students say, have you a pen? I haven't got the statistics. It's grammatically correct, but nobody speaks like that. So tip number 2 is use as much as possible have got for possession. It's more natural, it's more native. So tip number 3 is try to find alternative words to much, many and a lot of. These words are perfectly correct, but don't use them all the time. Try to use different, more advanced words, and these will really give your sentence a lift. So for example, instead of saying I did a lot of work on this project, you could say I did a great deal of work on this project. Instead of saying many people got involved, you could say a large number of people got involved. You see, it sounds better. For uncountable things, you can use a large amount. finding a place to stay took up a large amount of time. Okay? And if you want to sound informal, use loads of. I ate loads of donuts today and I might be sick. Okay? I spent loads of money on my Hello Kitty collection and I may have the best Hello Kitty collection in the world. So there you are, to sound more advanced or more informal, just like native speakers find alternatives to much, many and a lot of. Tip number 4 is don't use very, use understatement. British people love understatement. Understatement is saying something is less important than it actually is, and we use it all the time. And by using it, you'll give your sentences a lift, a nuance, and sound more native. So instead of saying very, try and use some of these words: fairly, quite, pretty, or rather. So instead of saying I'm very tired, say I'm rather tired. Instead of saying I'm very angry, say I'm pretty angry. Instead of saying I'm very surprised, say I'm quite surprised. Instead of saying Ronaldo is a very good footballer, say Ronaldo is fairly good. The differences between these 4 words we'll discuss another time, but do use it. Tip number 5 is don't say thank you. Well, that's not quite true, but if someone gives you something or does a small favour for you, native English speakers might use another word. In London, we just say cheers. Sounds friendly. Some people say ta. Of course, sometimes you can say thank you if someone does you a big favour or saves your life. Then by all means say thank you. But if it's just a small act of kindness, someone holds the door open for you, then just say cheers. And here's that bonus tip I promised you. If someone asked you, do you speak English? What do you reply? Don't say yes or yes I do. You want to give the impression that the question is so ridiculous, so absurd that you won't even dignify it with a serious response. The subtext is, why are you asking me this stupid question? Okay, so don't stand there like a robot and say, yes, I do. Instead, say something like, I get by, I manage, just a smattering. If you don't know what a smattering is, then look it up on Google. You have Google, don't you? But by using one of these phrases, you'll sound more confident and people will believe you. It's also linked to the British love of understatement that we talked about earlier. Okay, there you are. I hope you found them useful, and I'll just say cheers and more English language videos coming soon.